Alright, so this is a really basic texture that I've got on there. There's nothing fancy about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up, just to show you, I'm going to open up my Sovereign class model that I'm working on right now. And I'll just get rid of these lights I did from a render. And so here it is. You can see I've only got it partially textured at this point. Um, but that's what it looks like right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to one of the textures I'm using for it. And here it is. I'll switch to my top view. It's important to remember, switch out of that camera mode because otherwise you can start moving your camera around and you don't want to do that. Here's the texture I'm using. This is what I've created in Max. So as I zoom in, you can see all the different detailing that I've done to it and objects that I've created. And if I go to my object list, you can see it's very, very extensive. There are, I think, 5,000 of these little boxes, and I've hand drawn them all. And so, I mean, there are techniques that you can use to do things easier, you know, like creating circle polygons and stretching them. And, you know, there's all kinds of tricks and stuff that you can do. But really what I want to show you by doing this is just go to the perspective mode. And it gets a little choppy here because I got so much stuff going on. This is a pretty full texture. But I just want to show you all of those different objects that I've created and how they are on different levels. You can see it's essentially a flat thing here, and if I switch to, say, that view, there you go. I'll zoom right in and show you. So that's all it is. I've just created this flat scene. And so really the trickiest part of this whole thing is just setting up your camera, setting up your scene, and then chopping things in. And one of the things I'd show you is I've really cut up that model of that ship. And you can see, for example, I'll just hide everything but this. This is the actual mesh from my model. And what I did is I chopped it up, detached it from the model, merged it into the scene, and then used that 2x2x2 freeform displacement modifier just to flatten it. It gives me a guide. That way I know where I have to work, right? And if you're careful and very you know, you take your time and be precise with your mapping, then where you put your textures will show up on the model. And so when I have this, right, and I render it flat, properly mapped onto my model, it looks like that. So there you have it. One thing I would caution against is trying to map too much in one part, or trying to do too much in one section. It's if you want a really high quality product, and you know, hopefully my stuff, you know, hopefully my work is good, then my advice would be to take your time with it. And don't worry. I mean, a section like this, for example, at the top of this bridge, you know, I had to cut into to three sections. I cut a side section along here, I cut a front section here, and I cut a back section back there, and I did that for here as well. So it can be time consuming, but if you're patient, then it will pay off, I think. So that's my texturing method. Occasionally I'll use Photoshop or something if I'm doing some weathering. So for example, if I'll go ahead and I'll open up my Cardassian ship that I've been working on. Well, that I'm done working on it. But like these like black parts and little airbrushing, which is very amateurish. I'm not good with Photoshop, but that's done in Photoshop just to add a little bit of life to it. That kind of stuff is really hard to do with Max, but lines and hull textures and, you know, stuff like that is easy to do. I even, you know, applied an image of a refinery from the air to this, you know, onto an object in the texture scene to create sort of sensor paneling. Anyways, that's it. If you've got some questions, you know, send me an email, djcurtis_1701 @gmail.com.